Hey y'all, Fred here. Thanks so much for joining me today as we're going to take a look at the brand new Vosteed Porcupine. This is a brand new release that Vosteed just put out on January 14th. It is available on both their website and Amazon. I'll put a link down below for you guys if you want to go check it out. I want to be up front with you guys. Always, Vosteed did send me this knife at no cost to do a review on. But I think those of you who have seen any of my last several videos will understand and appreciate the fact that I'm going to give it to you straight whether I like it or not, regardless of whether they gave it to me for free. However, that being said, I am really glad they sent me this knife. I'm going to tell you right now, this is a serious contender for 2025 EDC Knife of the Year. I know that is a huge thing to say at the very beginning of the year when so many knives have yet to still come out, but I think if you stick with me for just a few minutes here and let me explain why I say that, I think you might come to appreciate the fact that that could very well be true on this thing. I'll tell you what, Vosteed is absolutely listening to their customers out there. I'm going to show you at least a half a dozen different examples in this one knife where they have listened to what we've been saying and have really gone to putting that into their knives. The designer of this, his name is 𝗚𝗏, Y-U-E. And man, he has designed a really good knife here. Before we get started, as always, if you would down below here, hit that subscribe notification bell if you're not already. I appreciate all my subscribers. Love chatting with you guys in all the comments. Always enjoy that. If you got to leave early, throw me a thumbs up. That certainly helps out little channels like mine get found on the YouTubes. I always start with taking a look at what's in the box, and pretty standard fare here for what you get for most of these types of knives. They do have some instructions in here that don't seem to want to cooperate right now. There's a sticker in there that also doesn't want to cooperate. 𝗏𝗏𝗁𝗏𝗁, there we go. So you got a little support card, how to maintain your knife, a little, I call them 𝗏𝗏𝗁𝗏𝗁. That's just the song if you're old school like me. I'm betting they don't call him Rocky, but then anyhow, there you go. There's a sticker. I do actually like this little case here. So first of all, has a little Velcro loop and patch here. Comes with their own little Vosteed patch on it. That's kind of cool. I like the orange liner. Of course, you got your cloth, but I really like this orange liner. I don't know if any of y'all are into lock picking. I know one of our subscribers, Ray, here, has his own lock picking as well as knife review channel. You should check him out if you get a chance. This is great for small items like lock picks or maybe a small set of screwdrivers or Allen wrenches. I'm starting to find some good uses, and that orange liner really helps you find things like that inside here. It doesn't get lost in the sea of black fuzz. Anyhow, pretty cool and standard fare on the box. As I said, this is the Vosteed Porcupine. This is a black micarta handle, actually. You can see a little bit. When I first got it, I was wondering, is that G10? And I thought it was going to be micarta. It is a very smooth, sanded down micarta. It feels very smooth to the touch. Very nice. Obviously, blue anodized collars on there, 14C. Blade on here, and it is using the button compression lock. That is the lock for 2025. Everybody is looking for knives in this style of a lock. Let's do some size comps before we get too deep into the mix here. Here's the 𝗪𝗏𝗁𝗏𝗏, which is considerably longer, and the Benchmade Bug Out regular size, which is also a little bit longer. So this is certainly a nice small EDC friendly size. For our Spyderco people, we have the PM2 and the Para 3. You'll see it's actually smaller than even the Para 3. It's actually almost identical in length. You really have to put them side by side like this, and that becomes virtually impossible for you to see the difference, but I can see these are basically the exact same length. So it's the same length as the Spyderco Para 3. All right, let's bring up the specs down the left side of the screen. You'll see that in the full open length, this is just a hair under 8 inches long, which does make it actually a medium-sized knife. The blade itself, they listed on the website as 2.99 inches, which could be a little deceiving for those of you who live in restrictive states, because when I actually measure it, and I went and looked this up, how most states that have knife restriction, blade length restrictions, they measure from the tip of the blade to the frontmost point of the scale, and when I measure that with my ruler on this knife, it comes at 3.1, probably 3.05, but it is definitely over 3 inches. So be very careful if you live in one of those states. The actual cutting length is about 2.8 inches because of this forward finger choil. The blade thickness is relatively thin and svelte, 118 thousandths. Handle comes in at about a ½ inch or so. They call this a black stone wash as the finish. To me, this is very much a PVD coating, which we'll talk about in just a minute. It is almost a full flat grind. You can see just at the very top here, a little bit of a flat area that would be actually helpful when it comes to sharpening this thing. But mostly almost a near full flat. Micarta scales, as I mentioned, 14C28N on the blade steel. The Rockwell is listed as 59 plus or 1 HRC. Really wish it would have been a little bit higher. I'm going to guess it's going to be the -1 when you get the PVD coating like this. So this is probably about a 58. 14C is okay, still within the range. You know, it's not terrible, but man, really would love to see that a point or two higher. The weight is a very nice and comfortable 3.19 ounces. Definitely a good EDC lock. It is using this button compression lock here. As I mentioned, we'll take a closer look at that. Comes in at right at $69 on the websites, and behind the edge, 17,000. So pretty slicey. The grind is pretty good on this. We'll take a closer look at the blade here in just a minute. Just wanted to get through all of the specs. All right, now, this may be the dumbest knife explanation ever, but bear with me and let's see if we can get through this story. So I want to tell you a little bit of a story about Mr. Moyarl. And he's hanging out at his favorite watering hole one day, and in walks the beautiful and sexy little Miss Rosie. And they just hit it off and fall madly in love, and they go on about their way, and they get married. And about a year later, they come back, and they have a little baby Porcupine. Not a porcupine, a little baby they call Porcupine, a baby knife called Porcupine, because I don't know, because they're just weird like that, I guess. Let's talk about the evolution of this blade and where I see the similarities, and I'm going to show these to you. So let's talk about dear old dad, Mr. Moyarl. This was almost everyone's favorite EDC affordable knife of the year. I think it was 2023, actually, that this knife came out. Incredibly popular knife. Let's see what it has in common. Well, first and foremost, we have that big black sweeping belly blade, drop point style. We have the pear-shaped opening for the thumb flippers. We had the beautiful black scales with this nice blue anodized collar. So you can see all of those things are found in the new Porcupine. All right, so let's talk about what it has in common with dear old mom. So obviously one of the most popular knives, certainly if sales are anything to indicate, and still going strong, hard to get these. Dear old mom has almost the exact same size and shape, big sweeping belly blade, has an oversized thumb hole, which you may have noticed the pear-shaped on the Porcupine is oversized compared to the Moyarl. It has a very square and neutral size handle. You know, they're obviously not identical. I'm not in any way trying to imply that these are knockoffs of each other. You can clearly see they're very different knives, right? I'm trying to show you similarities. But the most important of all is that beautifully designed double finger choil in that square, neutral-shaped handle. That is one of the reasons this knife has been so popular, is because of that grip right there, that forward choked up finger choil position. So, inherited that from its mom. Okay, so can we see the similarities that, you know, this is essentially the love child between the Moyarl and the Rosie, right? Think that hopefully makes a little more sense now. But the Porcupine is so much more than just either one of those knives. And let's talk about some of the characteristics and traits that it inherited from dear old granddad Vosteed. So as I mentioned before, top button compression lock, right? This is what everybody wants this year, is the button compression lock. I want the fidgetiness. You can see it bounces. You got to really time that just right. And it takes a little getting used to. If you owned this knife, you would get the hang of it. I'm still, you know, this is a new knife. I just literally took it out of the box here. So Got the button compression lock. Everybody said about the Moyarl, man, I love the blue pivot collar, but I really wish they would have gone and done a little bit more. Maybe put it on both sides of the knife, and maybe if they could do something in the back end of the knife, like a beautiful anodized blue lanyard hole. That would certainly be nice, wouldn't it? Let's talk about the pocket clip. So this is going to turn some people off, but I'm going to tell you why I love this thing. First and foremost, this is a pretty common style of pocket clip. You see this on a lot of Spydercos, particularly almost all of their lightweight models these days. It has good grippiness. It does not tear up your pockets. It is sunk into slots. However, you'll notice that the screw head does protrude a little bit above. I find that with most all of my pants so far, that button head has not been an issue. It is almost fully deep carry, and I guess I just don't really know. What do y'all think? Where is the cutoff line on is this deep carry or not deep carry? I mean, it's a few millimeters from the top of the knife. Does that still qualify as deep carry? In my book, it does. It is also less than halfway down the knife. Sometimes they make these much longer than this. So this is another area where Vosteed has really listened to its consumers. Consumers said, hey, I really want more of that blue anodized. If you're going to use it in the pivot collars, let's use it in the pivot collars and find somewhere else to make it. So they did that. They said, hey, I don't want a pocket clip that tears up my pockets. So they gave us one that didn't. Hey, I don't want a pocket clip that goes over halfway down the knife. So they didn't. I want a pocket clip that is reversible. So you got it here. It's just right. Okay, in my opinion, it's just right. I am not so fancy that I think all of my pocket clips need to be milled titanium. Some people will disagree with that, and that's perfectly fine. Everybody has their own style that they like, but again, that suits me just fine. Let's talk about the hardware. Hardware is T8 everything on this knife, including the pocket clip screws, the body screws, and the pivot. So that is nice. Hey, how about that? Another place where a company has finally listened to the consumers who say, I want T8 everything. They gave it to us, right? Countersunk screws, very nice touch there. Captive pivot here on the front with the blue anodized collars, matching spacer. You've got robust stop pins. This is a double stop pin setup, so the second stop pin in here is where the blade catches. However, one of the things that we've complained about on lots and lots of knives lately is that stop pin hits too far forward where I can't sharpen the knife. Well, this internal second stop pin hits right here when this blade closes. So it is not in any way impacting or affecting your ability to continue to sharpen this knife. Unlimited. Nice, good, beefy, perfectly placed stop pins, right? All very good there. This thing is a solid lockup, of course. Everybody expects that. There's no blade play. There's no pivot lash. There's no detent lash on this thing. All solid all the way around. We said, hey, I really need a slightly oversized thumb hole for that thumb flip just to be perfect. This is the perfect size for a thumb flip. The pad of your thumb just neatly fits right in there, and you push it straight up. That thing fires out with authority every single time, right? So that's good. Now, downside to that larger opening hole is it is possible for your finger to get stuck in there. It's a little too big. It lets a little too much finger in there. Again, if you own this knife, you will quickly learn how much of your finger and where to place it into that thumb hole so that you can do the reverse flip. The reverse flip is easy to do, no problem at all on that. Detent, I'm going to say, is about a medium. You can fail it if you try. You can certainly fail it if you get stuck in there, but you can fail it if you really try, but you probably won't. Like, you have to actually be trying. It takes very little force whatsoever to get this thing flipped out. So I'm going to say pretty good detent. We all said, I don't want the detent too strong. I don't want the detent too weak. Everybody's different. How in the heck do you accommodate everybody? I'd say this does a pretty good job of hitting that Goldilocks middle point right on there. Again, these are nice micarta scales. Sitting on steel liners. Okay, the steel liners are treated with the same, I'm going to guess, black wash PVD type of coating as the rest of the knife there. Let's talk about why they call this knife the Porcupine. My belief is that they call it the Porcupine because it has jimping everywhere. And so you get it on the top, you get it down here on the bottom, you get it on the front finger choil, you get it out the blade. That's why I think they call this the Porcupine. Now, if you're going to make a knife that has smooth scales, that have the potential to become a little slick if you had wet hands, what could you do to that knife to increase the grippiness of the knife so that despite having smooth scales, it's still pretty darn grippy all the way around. You'd make it into a porcupine just like they've done here. So they have offset the nice smooth micarta scales by adding the jimping all the way around. And it doesn't stick up. You can see it doesn't stick out over the surface of the knife, but your skin pushes down into it just enough to make that grippy in the hand. So I think that overcomes any problems of smooth micarta scales. Now, one of the things you can use, and I forget who turned me on to this wicked wax is pretty cool stuff. It is made for treating knives, specifically if you have D2 or any other type of steel that is a little more prone to corrosion. This kind of soaks into the actual steel and really protects it. And it's 100% food safe. And I forget, I don't know if it was 𝗪𝗏 or 𝗪𝗵𝟂 where I first learned about this stuff, but if you don't like that kind of whitish, chalky-ish pattern looking, you can put some of this wicked wax on this micarta scale. I do that on a lot of my other micarta knives, particularly the textured ones. And you can see it'll work its way in, but it also increases the grippy value. So it gives it a little bit of a sheen. Definitely is going to make it look a little darker. You can start to see that pattern really pop out on it, but it also enhances the grippiness a little bit of the knife. So you can put that on both steel and micarta. So anyhow, wicked wax is a cool thing to have if you have a nice collection, particularly in micarta where you really want to treat that micarta. All the corners are all knocked down. They're all chamfered very nicely. You can see they have a nice kind of cutaway chamfered area to get easy, good access to that thumb hole. Very nicely done all the way around on the scales. The compression lock is everything, is what is everywhere these days. This is 2025 is going to be the year of the top button compression lock because it's fidgety, gives you the fidgetiness of a button with the strength of a good solid lockup. You can see this button is recessed into the scales here, so you're not going to hit it by accident. It is definitely all day long, solid, locked up, no issues there. You're definitely going to use the knife in this position, right? And in this position, your finger, you'd have to really be able to bend it in a weird way to reach that button lock there. The only where I worry is a real full-blown hammer-style grip. If you're not careful, you could put that middle finger, you're going to know you're doing it, but you could put that middle finger just enough, and you squeeze just hard enough, you can release it. So if you're going to hammer grip it, I would go back in the farther back grip. As I get to doing the cutting test with this one, I probably will test it in both positions to see. For the most part, this is how you're going to be gripping this knife. So that button is not going to become an issue right there. The lockup is solid for that, however thin that liner lock is in there. The entire portion of let's see if I can throw a little light in there. The entire portion of that liner is touching the blade tang underneath that stop pin right there. So solid lockup, no worries there. You saw the blade wax, it does not break free. 14C28 and drop point blade with a big sweeping belly. They call it black stone washed. I think, again, this is probably more of a PVD. Here's another thing we've said to knife companies. Hey, knife company, why are you stopping your jimping about a ½ inch from the back of the blade here? When I'm using this knife, I'm choked up. So they have done an awesome job here of carrying that jimping all the way out to the front of the blade here. But we've said to them, hey, I'd really love an extra row of jimping out at the tip. A lot of people will use the knife this way, particularly hunting, skinning type activities that you may need to do. But a lot of people open their packages like that. And that works just great in that position and gives you a little extra jimping. Now, the one downside I will say to this, because it is PVD coated, that PVD coating takes away a little bit of the grippiness of the jimping. As you can imagine, you've kind of coated it with a plasticky, rubberized type coating, however thin it might be. You're going to reduce the jimping a little bit, but I'm going to tell you, it still works really good. And whether you're choked way out here or in here, you're going to feel that jimping, and it definitely does lock you in. Again, the excellent forward finger choil, reminiscent to me of the Rosie, is what makes this almost the best EDC knife of the year already. Certainly, it's the best one already because there haven't been a whole lot of others to compete with it yet. But really feels comfortable in all different types of grips. The action on it is great. It is riding on ceramic open face bearings. I will tell you, those feel smooth. They don't feel gritty or bumpy like kind of inexpensive bearings feel. These feel almost, very glass-like smooth action. Gives you great action. You can thumb flip it. You can use the button to flip it in and out. reverse flip it. We talked about all that. Blade centering came dead on from the factory. Hopefully we can see if we can get that right in there. Dead smack center, just what you want. Sharpening choil is outstanding because you have that large finger choil. You can see it remains quite thin. Let's see how I can get that to focus in here. It remains quite thin all the way through here. So you're not going to have any problem. And because, again, that stop pin comes all the way back here in the middle of the finger choil, you can sharpen this all day long as you will ever need to sharpen this. The factory sharp came pretty good out of the box. I'm going to give this about a 9 on the redneck scale. 9 out of 10. And it is smooth all day long. No worries. It does no hang-ups. Very smooth. They put a rather low, I'm going to say a low grip, maybe a 400, 600 max is what they sharpened this to. And what that means is that this is going to have a really good bite. When we get to the cutting test and cutting that rope, which is always kind of an edge killer, I think this should do really well. The grinds are fairly even on both sides. Cuts like a champ. I don't really expect anything more than a 9 out of a factory edge. So no issues there either. Ergonomically, as I said, it fits perfectly in the hand in all of multiple different positions. You even have enough room on this knife. Another request is, hey, I know you gave us a front finger choil, but give us enough room to choke back on this knife as well. I have a size large glove, so you probably get an extra large. Even in the back position, if you really needed to do any push cutting like that, where you don't want to be up on the blade. Most people are going to use this right here, as I mentioned, all day long. That's beautiful. You can pinch grip it. You've got that jimping out there, as I mentioned, for draw cuts. Just about any position you could put this into, you are going to like it. This nice neutral squarish kind of handle is very comfortable, even in a reverse grip type situation. That's going to work just fine and dandy as is. Let's talk about negatives. Kind of hard to find too many wrong, but I've pointed a couple out already. One, the micarta could be a little bit slippery or slick if you have wet hands. They did not leave it textured, as many micarta knives are. Again, use a little wicked wax, and they've also given you all this jimping in the liners to help overcome that issue. Some people won't like the paperclip style pocket clip. Again, that works just great for me, but I understand if you would prefer a tie clip. I'm going to guess there's probably going to be some options for you to probably swap this out pretty easily with a milled tie version of a pocket clip. The jimping on the blade coating reduces, the blade coating reduces that jimping just a little bit. Not terrible, but, it's the way it always is. When you put a PVD coating, it's going to knock back your jimping, a little bit there. And you can get your finger caught in that thumb hole. It's great. It's perfect for thumb flipping. However, for reverse flipping, you will occasionally find yourself getting your finger caught up in there and, cause you to misfire it like that right there. So your finger stays till it gets to about here. Then your finger pops out, but the blade stops right there. So if you see me doing that, that is the reason why. However, again, if you own this knife, you're going to quickly figure out where to put your finger on this thing. So, yeah, it's not going to be an issue at all. All right, let's talk about how Vosteed is listening to us and to its buyers with all of the things they have put into this knife. And this is where it really, the rubber meets the road. First of all, the world has basically said, hey, I love a squarish, neutral-shaped handle, right? I love the double finger choil that gives me that great blade connection. I'm right up on the blade, but I don't feel like I've got my finger near the cutting edge. Couldn't be more popular than that, and they have given us that right here. We said we want a bigger thumb hole for easier thumb flips. They gave us that. We want the jimping to go farther down the blade, and hey, we'd like an extra row of jimping while you're at it down near the tip for those extended draw cuts. Gave us that. If the handle's smooth, we need a way to enhance the grip on the handle, and they've given us that. We want to be able to use it both choked up and choked back. Let's see, we want that reversible pocket clip, but we don't want it to tear up our pockets, and we don't want it to extend too far down the handle either. It doesn't need to be more than halfway down the handle. Man, A+ all the way around on that. We really loved the Moyarl, but wish you had more of the blue accents and really, played up that theme. They couldn't have done a better job than how they did that on this one right here. We really want more of these button compression locks because they're both fidgety and secure at the same time. We want a good detent that's not too hard, too soft. We'd really prefer that you would take all the heavy branding off of the blade and just have something very subtle on the blade. and they listen to that as well. And by the way, we want a good quality budget steel like a 14C28N, and we want all of that at an affordable price. So you tell me, what else would you do to this thing to make it even more impressive at the price range this comes in and ticks off more of the boxes of any EDC knife that's currently out on the market? I just have to tip my hat to Vosteed on this one. And I know that sounds incredibly like I'm sucking up to them because they sent me a knife for free to review, but y'all know me. Y'all have seen my reviews. You know that I love that forward finger choil. You know I like my accents. Everybody wants this button compression lock for the fidgetiness of it. I've always told you I like these pocket clips, man. Everything about this knife just suits me incredibly well, and I think it's going to suit most people pretty darn well too. So I'd like to hear from you guys. Y'all let me know down in the comments. What do you think about this one? What have they missed here? Because it's clear that they're listening to their customers. So let's tell them. What else would you do to this thing to make it even better? Can you see anything else that would make this knife better beyond what I just said here? As always, if you would please down below here, hit that subscribe notification bell. If you're not subscribed already, throw me a thumbs up. If you think I did okay, thumbs down. Let me know what you think I did differently. Otherwise, I'll have a link for this down below. It is an affiliate link, so if you use that, I appreciate it. You're certainly helping me out. That helps me get more knives that we can do some testing with, because they don't send me the kind of knives that we want to test here, right? Otherwise, thanks so much for joining me today. I appreciate you sticking with me on this long video, and I'll see you on the next video. Thanks. Take care.